Today, pre-algebra, we are continuing our study of x-intercepts and y-intercepts. Yesterday, we looked at how to identify one given a coordinate plane, given a graph. Today, we're going to look at how to calculate one when you're giving the equation of a line. So maybe pen graph, but it's an equation form, not on the coordinate plane. We go back to what we ended objective CO53 with because it's that important. What is true about the ordered pair of every x-intercepts? Tony. Y is equal to 0. And similarly, what is true about the ordered pair of every y-intercepts? X is equal to 0. And the reason why that's important is because to find an x-intercept, given an equation, notice how the equations down here, what variables do they all have? They all have x and y. So if you're looking for the x-intercept and you know that y is equal to 0, all you need to do is set y equal to 0 and then solve for x. Set y equal to 0 and solve for x. Likewise, to find a y-intercept, if you know that x will equal 0, then you'll be setting x equal to 0, and you will solve for y. Set x equal to 0 and solve for y. You know, say what you will about my chicken scratch messy writing, at least I'm consistent. Look at the consistency between the words and for, like how the F-O-R kind of all connect there, and then the V-E. I might be messy, but I am consistent.
I can't read
your D in the and.
Yeah.
It's like the breast cancer.
You know, yeah, say what you will, but I am consistent.
You are.
Yeah, thank you. Okay? All right. I'm going to scroll down a bit, but I'm going to rewrite our steps up here just so we have them.
That's not very nice. That's not kind. We're not sure the name. That is not the right. Actually, I don't care what's done.
No, it's not. They're all already.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. You are quiet. So, Tony. What? That doesn't matter. So, looking at these processes, let's the first one, 3x plus 8y equals 24. If I am looking for the x-intercept, okay, I'm going to label what I'm trying to find here so you can match up the work with what you're trying to get to. If I'm looking for the x-intercept, because I know that y is equal to 0, if I've got the equation 3x plus 8y equals 24, I'm going to rewrite that equation, but instead of y, what number am I going to put in there? 0. Because to find an x-intercept, I know that y is going to be 0. It has to be. Okay? It has to be. Those that don't have your binder today, take your notes on a separate paper so when you find it, you can transfer it. Okay? And then if the weekend passes and you still can't find it, then we'll get yours. And why we like this, what happens when you multiply a number by 0? What do you always get? 0. So by making y equals 0, essentially we eliminate that term. And what we're left with is the equation 3x equals 24. Folks, if you were paying attention, you just missed the key to the whole thing here, right? The reason why we set that y value equal to 0 is, number one, it's an x-intercept, so we know y has to be 0. And number two, it turns this equation into just a one-stepper, right? If y is 0, that 8 times 0 goes away, because 8 times 0 is 0, and we're left with 3x equals 24. You know. Yeah. And to solve this one-step equation, divide both sides by 3. X equals 8. Our x-intercept is 8, 0. Right? Y has to be 0. Okay? And then we solve this to be 8. Good.
You just divide 3
I have 24 divided by 3, yes. Yep. 24 divided by 3. To find the y-intercept then, y, go ahead.
Well, how do you know if it's a X-intercept or Y-intercept?
Because
Like,
we
do you
labeled
do
it that.
both- Do you do both sides of it, like a Y-intercept and X-intercept?
You have to solve for each of them, yes.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why this one is an x-intercept is because which variable did we set equal to 0?
Y.
Y. Right? Which was our step for finding an x-intercept. So now to find the y-intercept, we're going to be setting x equal to 0, right? Okay? To find the y-intercept, set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So now we rewrite the equation to be 3 times 0 plus 8y equals 24. We know that x has to be 0 for it to be a y-intercept. That's why we can replace x with 0 in the equation to solve for. We like this because what's 3 times 0? 0. It's on. We're left with a one-step equation to solve. 8y equals 24. Divide both sides by 8, get y by itself. And y is equal to 3. So, our y-intercept, 0, 3. Okay. Questions on that process? Gotta make sure it's not my agent. There are 3 people you always answer the phone for. In my case, my wife, my boss, my agent.
What about 911?
Well, they never call me.
They don't
Text
call
me.
They do. You call them.
You typically call them. Excuse me, do you have an emergency? No, I'm good, thanks. That'd be a waste of tax dollars. Why?
So could you technically just take so it says 3 times X equals 24, which would give to 8. Couldn't you technically just be like 3 and then not have to do the second part of it?
Wyatt is noticing a connection here. If I'm following your train of thought, I think what Wyatt's saying, he's noticing a connection here between the x and y intercept and the values in the original equation. Is that, yeah? He's seeing we had 3x, 8y, and notice our x-intercept is 8, 0, our y-intercept is 0, 3. There's a connection there. The reason why that works out is because there's no greatest common factor between 3 and 8. So it won't always work out that way. So it's a little bit dangerous to just use that every single time. But there is that connection there. Yes. Yes. Let's look at the third one.
Wait, so we can just,
Tony,
for the X, we can just put 0, 3. We don't have to do all the equation stuff.
I want you to do the equation stuff.
On the test, maybe?
On the test, you can show as much or as little work as necessary. But on the homework, I want you to show the steps. Griffin.
I agree with that.
Yes. The third one here, 3x minus 6y equals 42. Okay. We're going to solve for our x-intercept first, which means we are setting which variable equals 0?
What? Why?
Which one are we doing?
Y, the third one here.
Oh, third one.
Okay. So we can rewrite this to be 3x minus 6 times 0 equals 42. Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
3x minus 6 times 0 equals 42. Again, setting that equals to 0 allows us to cancel this term out. And we've got a one-step equation to solve. 3x equals 42. Blake?
How do you know if you're solving for the Y-intercept or the X-intercept?
Well, you have to solve for each of them. So you can solve for whichever one you want to first. I know I'm solving for the x-intercept here because I wrote x-intercept here. If I want to solve the y-intercept, I would write y-intercept and then do this process. So you know you're solving for the x-intercept because we said we were, and then we follow the steps to solve for an x-intercept, which is set y equal to 0, and then solve for x.
Do you have to do both of them?
Yes. Yep, just like yesterday's assignment, you had to write them both. You have to do them both here also. So which one you do first is up to you. Jack.
Okay, so you could say we're solving for x.
you could just do
You are slow.
5 divided by 30.
Where are you talking? Oh, we're doing the third one.
Oh, so then I guess if we're doing the third one, that was just my example.
Yes.
Okay, so if we're doing this one, we could do, couldn't we just do 3 divided by, or 42 divided by 3?
That's exactly
That's
what
our
we do.
x. And then we do 42 divided by 6, and that's our y.
Close. 42 divided by negative 6. Because that sign belongs to it. But yes, that's what you do. Okay? I want you to show the work because it's the homework, and I'm the boss. Okay? Well, she's my boss, but I'm your boss.
So if we got Mrs.
No, Mrs. Dawson's their boss.
Right. If she overrules me, then yeah. But she'll defer to me. She'll say, do what he says.
We're awesome.
For the Y-intercepts, okay? The Y-intercept, which variable are we setting for 0, Lexi?
Wait, what?
For the Y-intercept, which variable are we setting?
3, 0.
Okay, we are setting x equal to 0 here. Right? So 3 times 0 minus 6y equals 42. Jack kind of accidentally brought up my next very important point. Don't ignore the signs. Okay? When you plug in that 0 for x to get that term canceled out, this negative, this minus sign, does belong to the 6y. So it's a negative 6y, which affects your final answer because now when you divide by a negative 6, right? 42 divided by negative 6 is going to give you a negative 7. So it's going to be 0, negative 7. Okay? This is one of those things where once it clicks, once you get it, it's almost too easy of a process that you want to do it mentally. And when you try and do it mentally, that's when things like negative signs get missed. Okay? So I want you to show the work for the homework. Okay.
How did you get negative 6?
Because if I'm solving for the Y-intercept, I know that x equals 0, right? So I set x equal to 0 to cancel that term out. And because in the equation it's a minus 6y, that whole term has got to come down. So it's negative 6y equals 42. And then to get y by itself, I have to divide by negative 6. And that's how I got the negative 7. Why?
So it's pretty much just like dividing each number by the.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Okay? Other questions? Okay. All right. One on in the second or third row that you'd like to tackle. What looks particularly worth our while? You can pick whatever one you want. Okay.
Bottom left.
The 1.5?
Yeah.
Okay. Decimals, they tend to make things a little more complicated, but the process doesn't really change. Okay. If we're looking for the x-intercept, decimal, fraction, whatever, we're still going to be setting y equal to 0. So we can rewrite the equation to be 1.5x plus 4.5 times 0 equals 27. And what happens to that 4.5 times 0 term?
The division crossed out.
It's crossed out, just like before, right? Anything times 0, doesn't matter what it is going to cancel out. So we're still left with a one-step equation to solve. 1.5x equals 27. How do you get x by itself, Blake?
18.
And how do you get that?
1.5 divided by 27 divided by 1.5.
Right, you're still going to divide by that coefficient. You're still going to be dividing by 1.5. Right? And that gives you a value of 18. So nothing in the process changes, even though it's a decimal. You're just going to be dividing by a decimal. Okay? You do still need to write this as an ordered pair, so it's going to be 18-0. Yeah. To find the y-intercept, again, nothing changes. You're still setting x equal to 0. So 1.5 times 0 plus 4.5y equals 24. That 1.5 times 0 is still going to cancel out because anything times 0 is 0. And you're still going to be left with a one-step equation to solve. 27, sorry, thank you. 27. And what is 27 divided by 4.5? Blake? 6. So y equals 6. And 0, 6 is your answer. Okay. Questions on the process?
Keep it up. I need it.
Keep it up. Okay. I will. You keep it up too. Keep it up. Others you want me to go over? Yeah. The brain busters? Yeah. So these brain buster questions here says write an equation with 7, 0, and 2, 0, or sorry, 0, 2 as intercepts. Oh boy. How are you going to go about this? Any thoughts? Now going backwards. How would you go about writing the equation? And this might be where you go back to what kind of Wyatt said earlier, and what others had said too, looking at that connection between the numbers in the equation and then your constant on the other side. Right? Go back to the very first one where it was 3x plus 8y equals 24. We kind of talked about how that 3 and the 8 were in the equation and were also the answers for the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Any thoughts? So if 3 and 8 were the answers for the x-intercept and the y-intercept, and we notice that 3 times 8 equals 24, which is the number that the equation equaled in the very first example we did, here we've got 7, 0, and 0, 2. If we follow that pattern, what could our equation equal? Again, going back to that first example, we had 3, 8, and 24. There was a connection there, right? Here we've got 7 and 2. So what could our equation equal?
2x plus 7y.
Would equal, you're right, 2x plus 7y, Shay? Equal 14. Yeah. Okay. 3 and 8 in the first example multiplied to be 20 and 24. Here, 2x and 7y equals 14. And you can check this by multiplying, does 2 times 7, does 2 times our x-intercept equal 14? Yes, it does. Does 7 times our y-intercept, 7 times 2 equal 14? Yes, it does. Right? I said, why it was like, will it always work? And my answer was no, it won't always work because, sometimes numbers have a greatest common factor. Like it wouldn't work there the way it's set up here. It wouldn't work here the way it's set up there. But if you're writing the equation, you can make it happen. Okay? So I'll let you do the last one on your own then, now that you have this example here. This is going to be homework for Tuesday, since that is the next time I see you. Con is due tonight. There will be no new con assigned for next week because of Easter and because of the field trips and everything that's going on. So make sure you get tonight's done. Any others you want to talk about before we sign off?
Hi.
Blake.
So at the top, left one, do you erase, so does it become negative 10, or do you erase the minus?
You're talking about 10x minus 2y equals 40. So if you're solving for the x-intercept, you make y 0. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
So if you're solving for the x-intercept and make y 0, then this term cancels out, and you'd be left with 10x equals 40.
So no negative.
It will be a negative when you solve for the y-intercept, Because when you solve for the y-intercept, which means you set x equal to 0, when you set x equal to 0, this term will cancel out, but you still have that negative sign with the 2y. So solving for the y-intercept, you will have negative 2y equals 40. Okay? Yeah, everything that you need to know is back up the top of the page. Am I solving for an x-intercept? Yes, set y equal to 0, solve. Am I solving for a y-intercept? Set x equal to 0, solve. Jeffrey.
What day is the field trip?
Wednesday is Feed My Starving Children. Thursday, we're doing a retreat here on campus. And Friday, I don't know. Yeah, Friday might be a normal
Wait, what do you
day.
mean?
So mine is going to not
It's
come
like
to school.
speakers are going into.
Talk to Lit Master Olson. He is
Or the office.
the one in charge. There's a retreat here.
Just for 7th grade?
It's kind of like this.
Like, you know, where we just kind of, I don't know, don't do schoolwork, but connect on an emotional level.
Wait, so
Really get to know each other well.
never said-
Ask Lit Master Olson.
Mr. Schultz, are we gonna like?
Exactly.
Are we gonna like go to church and then just like the rest of the day?
Lit Master Olson holds the
Or
answers.
talk to the office.
Okay. All right, folks, homework for Tuesday. That's how you math.
Don't forget to
Like and subscribe.